is up, Who Dat Nation? Welcome inside a halftime edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I'm your host, Chris Rosvogan. As always, we're brought to you by Scott Fickner Injury Lawyers. 14-10, Saints are trailing. Honestly, I would say this is definitely a half where it's been more positive than negative. That said, obviously, the first half ended on a note where I'm kind of baffled right now, to put it this way. Saints had a chance to either cut it to 1 with a field goal or take the lead with a touchdown, end up trying to run the Philly special on 3rd and goal, and Chris Olave gets intercepted, and it's just a weird play. I don't know if I love the decision. I know that, had it worked, we'd all be praising Kellen Moore, and since it didn't work, there's criticism. I just think when you're running the football really well, you had a chance to even lower the clock too, with Buffalo having no more timeouts left. I probably would have just ran it, or let Spencer Rattler try to take a shot at the end zone there. Doesn't end up happening. But other than that, and it's hard to ignore that because obviously that's a frustrating, miscue for the Saints, and you leave points on the board. I think there's actually a lot to be positive about with this half. I'd say the Saints have run the ball extremely well, 5.6 yards per carry. Kendrick Miller has looked great. Alvin's had his runs. I'd love to see them open it up a little bit more for Alvin and give him a chance to make something happen in space. Rattler's used his legs pretty well, so they're running the ball efficiently against the worst run defense in football. You got to keep that up if you want to keep this game close. I think the defense has done a complete 180. They were getting run off the field. They were getting blown off the line of scrimmage. And now you're seeing a lot of fight from this defensive line. Brzee made a couple of good plays. Carl Granderson starting to step up. And the back end of the defense, I've spent the entire offseason, if you go from the draft onward, talking about Jonas Sanker and how I think he could be a really good player. And look, I don't know what the ceiling is for him, and I don't know what he'll end up becoming, but I know that he has the talent to be that type of safety in the back end that makes a lot of game-changing plays. And we saw one already today with the interception on Josh Allen. So kudos to Jonas Sanker. He's been tremendous. The play before that, he had a great pass breakup. Pete Werner should have had an interception, ends up dropping it. The defense is having their chances. They're starting to play well. And interestingly enough, Isaac Yedem's now on the bench. Quincy Riley's in. And I don't know if that's a production reason, which is possible, or the fact that on the opening touchdown that the Bills had, Yedem didn't show a lot of, I would say effort. You kind of assumed DeMario was going to wrap up Shakir, and then Shakir takes off for a 40-yard touchdown. So Saints have made some changes. They're showing great fight defensively. I think that's a credit to Brandon Staley and this staff, what they're able to do. I think they continue to run the football well. Keep Josh Allen on the sideline where he can't harm you, and see if you can move the chains methodically, especially with the way they're running the football with Kendrick Miller and Alvin. So I think that's a huge plus. No Ruiz. We'll see how the offensive line looks now. Simpkins will be in at guard with Penning. Maybe it ends up being a good thing. Maybe not. We'll see what happens, but I doubt he plays in the second half. But overall, I'd say some good things. The only real negative that I thought was obviously the way they started defensively. And then Chris Olave had a really brutal drop on a 3rd down. And then the interception, I'm not going to chalk that up to him. He's not a fucking quarterback, but it is crazy to think that the first half ends and Chris Olave's got more interceptions than he does catches. Kind of bizarre to think about. So let me get into any comments that you guys have, and we'll kind of just go from there till the second half begins. Going to start off here with a super chat from Cajun Curveball. Thank you for the support. Says Sanker is a big plus again with not using the timeout. Why not just let Spencer throw it? Werner drop pick will be the killer. Would have been at the 20. Yeah, I don't disagree. Look, I think Sanker's been tremendous. The Werner interception, I don't really get. Like, it literally hit him in the numbers. Yeah, that's why they play defense as that's every old dad's favorite saying when a defensive player drops an easy pick. It's like, well, that's why they play defense. Well, that is why. I mean, that's just a brutal missed opportunity there for the Saints. And then for the timeout management, I don't know. I guess you're worried about maybe the Bills burning you deep with Josh Allen and what they can do. So I'm not as frustrated this time around as I was earlier in the season. Cajun Curveball with another super chat. Thank you so much. Says Groupie drills a logo kick, but when in Seattle, he can't make a 30-yarder. Disgusting defense to Gold Mayo. Callers personal. Ruiz is crap. Anyway, look, I agree with all those. Look, Groupie for me makes a 54-yarder. The question is now, is that a fluke kick, or is that going to kind of maybe be a turning point? Maybe he'll start to get his momentum back and feel a little bit confident. And I think as a kicker, that's so vital to feel like you can step up to the plate and make sure you got your team's back. And we'll see now, because this game's pretty close. I think the Saints, if they continue to run the football well, will keep it close. And maybe Groupie will have a big opportunity to kick one of those pressure type field goals in that situation. Still upset about the way the first half ended, though. They really had a chance to take a lead or at least cut it to 1. Perp Fanta says offense hasn't been the problem all season. Defense has been soft. Yedem and Ruiz have been midder than mid. and both of them are off the field right now, So we'll see how that kind of plays out. But I do think that is fascinating that both will be off the field, and we'll see how that kind of transpires for them. Xavier says a healthy O-line can solve a lot of early penalties. Miller is making that much needed leap, and defense is stepping up in the second quarter. That trick play was so dumb because Olave could have just pulled it down instead of half-assing that throw. Yeah, look, the throw was absurd, and obviously not what you want to see. I don't know. I don't love the idea of getting cute in that spot. Kudos to the Bills for reading it well, but you mentioned the penalties. The Saints have been penalized 2 times in the first half. When you talk about coaching staff making those improvements, that's one of those areas I'm going to look at, right? Like, they've had 30 penalties through the first 3 games. You got 2 in a hostile environment in Buffalo. That's something that I will give the coaching staff credit for at least showing a little bit of improvement week to week there. Cajun Curveball says at least some fight. Absolutely. These are the type of games you want to watch. You don't want to watch the ones like last week where it's literally over by halftime. Those are the worst experiences as a fan. Ms. Panenko says trying to play cute in the red zone is ridiculous. That might cost us a game we should be winning by now. I don't disagree. Jerry G saying looking good out there. For the most part, Jerry, I definitely agree. I'd say from the first quarter, like end of the first quarter on, I think the Saints have been the better team so far. The Bills have had a lot of miscues. The Bills are kind of meeting their match in terms of the trenches right now. And look, that run defense of Buffalo, I don't think it's drastically going to get better in the second half. I think the Saints are going to have their opportunities. This has been a bad run defense for the first 3 weeks of the season. Got to just continue to keep your foot on the gas, and you got to avoid sloppy penalties so you're ahead of the change. Don't want to be in 3rd and long and those tough down and distances. X says Sanker's a dog. I agree. Ransom Antoine says we need to capitalize on field position for sure. Jerry says that defense keeps Allen in check. Philly special inside the 10. This is why this team doesn't win games. Look, it's again, I don't agree with the decision. I would have, first off, I probably would have ran it on 2nd down just to take 40 seconds off the clock because Buffalo ran out of timeouts. They end up throwing it. And now you're in that 3rd and 6 where you're not going to make it two shots to go for it because you probably just kicked the field goal. But that's why I would have ran it on 3rd down. Obviously, hindsight's tough to go off that, and if I did that every single time, it'd be unfair. But just in that moment, I thought they'd use 2nd down to really trim the clock, and then 3rd down, you have your options. Do you want to throw it? It's okay, you can do so because you already took 40 seconds off, or do you want to run it again and then make your decision based off what happens with that play? So, just tough, obviously. Jacob says Jonas Sanker's going to be a dog. It seems that way for sure. Decent, fun game. Saints showing up better than I expected. Now expecting us to win, but looking forward, not expecting us to win, but looking forward to the half. Yeah, look, I mean, they're in this game. Why not? As a, 16.5 point underdog. So obviously they deserve a lot of credit. Jediah says Penning's so trash, he makes Ruiz look like prime Armstead. I don't know if I agree with the second part of that. Ruiz, I don't think looks like prime anyone, to be quite honest. Robert says, I hated that cute play when you're sitting on points and momentum, but mostly enjoyable game so far than wanting to murder my family like a normal Saints Sunday. Dark, but after last week, I guess I kind of understand the sentiment, I guess. Rattler's too scared to throw deep. Swear I've never seen him throw the ball more than 20 yards. Also part of why we aren't seeing Shaheed's deep threat ability this year. Don't disagree. I mean, Rattler, he doesn't want to push the ball down the field. I say it. Some people think it's a shot at him. It's just the truth of the matter. He just doesn't push the ball down the field. So that's just kind of where we're at. And it's unfortunate because to your point, you don't get those explosive plays from the team. So it's just rough. Ed says, keep running the ball. Bills can't stop it. I totally agree with that. I think that you got a shot here. Again, there's 2 factors to it. Obviously, you're helping your team. You're helping your quarterback by making sure he's not in tough down and distances. And you're also keeping Josh Allen, that reigning MVP of the league, on the damn bench. So it really helps out both sides of the football. Saints 0-3 and playing hard, good enough for me. Fair enough after last week, man. Fair enough, Riley Beat says, got to take advantage of plays when we get them. Pete Werner, in parentheses, yeah, it's a bad drop, for sure. For sure. Libby says, I'm happy with that half. I wish they'd have given it to Alvin at the end, but so far I'm happy. Yeah, look, I like I said before, I would have ran the football maybe one more time, but it is what it is. It's a brutal mistake. I can't help but think that's going to cost them at the end of the day, especially in a game that is really close right now. Giving away a possession right there when you're inside the 6, inside the 10 is just rough. It's a tough one. It really is. Cajun Curveball says, do not pay Olave. I mean, I've been on that train for a while. No knock on Chris Olave. I just, the money that it's going to cost to keep him around, I don't think he has necessarily justified that massive of a contract. Saints aren't really in the business right now where they should be paying him a shit ton anyway, because they got a lot of problems to figure out. So it's tough. Our punter is good. Hey, look, man, Kroger's punt that was downed like inside the 5 was outstanding. That bounce was really special. So, look, he's not getting an awful amount of work. He's had 2 punts so far, but both have been inside the 20, and he's done his job. And look, special teams, that's another thing. Special teams was brutal in week 3. They've actually been really good so far. You have, 0 mistakes in special teams. You got the 54-yard field goal, and Kroger's been really good with the punt so far. Cajun Curveball with another super chat. Thank you for sports. Says I'm 150 pounds and could beat out Ruiz. Awful player. Man, we'll see what's going to happen in the second half too with him out. Simpkins has a great opportunity here to maybe earn himself a spot. We'll see. I really think that I really think he's got a good opportunity to make a name for himself. And look, if it is a lower leg injury, you'd have to imagine he's going to miss time. So we'll see what happens. Eric says the run game should open up some deep plays for Shaheed in the second half. I'd like to think so. That's also why I'm a big proponent of it, right? I'd love nothing more than, you rip off an 8-yard run on first down, 2nd and 2, play action, take a shot to Rashid Shaheed. I'd love to see that. And maybe that's what happens in the second half. It's possible. But I talked about this last week. Rashid Shaheed averages about 15 to 16 yards of reception for his career. This season, he's averaging 9 yards of reception. There's a huge drop right now. I know it's only 3 games and we're in the 4th, but something's got to give, right? They got to start pushing the ball downfield just a little bit more, and you got to let Shaheed use his greatest attribute, which obviously is that blazing speed. Ed says off topic, Malik Neighbors, damn. Not off topic technically, Ed. I mean, obviously off topic for the sake of this game, but next week the Saints do play the Giants, and really unfortunate, man. I don't even know if it's like that. I don't know if it's a MetLife turf problem, just a turf problem in general. But obviously he jumps up, looks like his knee gives out when he's coming back to the football. He's definitely not playing next week. I'd imagine he's out for the season. I hope that's not the case. He's such a special player to watch. But look, unrelated for today's game, related for next week, though, the Saints do play the Giants. And obviously, things are a little bit easier game planning for an offense without one of the 5 best receivers in the league, because that's how highly I think of Neighbors already. And obviously as opposed to game planning with him in there. So maybe we can solve Olave's lack of impact by replacing Ruiz with him. Oh, man. Hobbs T735 says, hate that Ruiz got injured, but he kept getting beat a lot. Yeah, look, like I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, Simpkins played great in the preseason. Doesn't necessarily mean it'll translate to regular season success, but why not? Like, why can't this be the moment for Simpkins to come out here and maybe prove that he's capable of being a legitimate starter at the offensive guard spot? So the Saints are going to have opportunities in this second half if that offensive line can hold up and move the football. So second half's about to begin. We're going to switch right over to watch this all unfold, and we'll be back for the post-game live stream. So if you guys got any comments and we didn't get to, or you have any thoughts on the second half that you want to kind of just sound off on, come back to our post-game live stream. So subscribe to Boot Crew Media and you'll get more from the Straight Up Saints podcast, the destination for the Who Dat Nation.